There is a pain that comes not from abuse, not from betrayal, but from neglect, from the slow erosion of love taken for granted. And tonight, my dear friends, I come to tell you about a woman who didn't see what she had until it walked. She once had a man who stood by her, not with just words, but with action. He stood through storms. He stayed when others left. He gave her his heart, and she didn't even know she had it in her hands. But now she's alone. Now she feels the emptiness. Now she hears the silence where his laughter used to be. Now, she misses the man she took for granted. And I want to ask you tonight, could this be you? Could this be someone you love? Could this be your future if you don't open your eyes? Don't turn away, because this story, her story, might just be your wake-up call. A call to value what you still have before it becomes what you only remember. Stay with me, because before this night is over, God might just open your heart to a truth you've been too blind or too busy to see. There's something about the quiet strength of a good man that often goes unnoticed, not because it isn't there, but because it doesn't demand attention. He doesn't stand in the spotlight shouting about his efforts, his pain, or the weight he carries. He gets up each morning and does what needs to be done. He works the long hours. He keeps the promises. He shows up even when he's tired, even when he's misunderstood, even when his heart feels empty. He doesn't seek praise. He seeks peace. And in that pursuit, he often becomes invisible to the very people he's trying to serve. His love isn't loud. It's not made of poetry or grand gestures. It's made of presence, reliability, and a constant decision to stay when walking away would be easier. He's not the man who needs to be told he's a hero, but sometimes he's the man who needs to be noticed. But she didn't notice. She saw the results of his labor, but never the labor itself. She grew used to the comfort he created. She assumed the light would always be on, the bills would always be paid, the roof would never leak, and her burdens would always have his shoulder to lean on. She confused consistency with convenience. She thought his silence meant he didn't have feelings, that his strength meant he couldn't be hurt. She thought because he didn't complain, he wasn't breaking. And while she demanded more expression, more romance, more spark, she missed the deeper truth, that he was already loving her in the most profound way a man can. By showing up every day, by standing in the gap, by protecting what mattered even when no one said thank you. Over time, her expectations became entitlements, and his sacrifices became standards. She judged him by what he wasn't doing instead of honoring all that he was doing. He carried burdens she never saw, made decisions she never appreciated, and gave of himself in ways that quietly cost him more than she ever knew. He didn't ask for much, just respect, just partnership, just a little acknowledgement that his life was being poured out, not for applause, but for love. But when love is met with criticism, when sacrifice is met with silence, even the strongest man will begin to fade, not in anger, not in drama, just in weariness. Quietly, invisibly, he'll begin to pull back. He'll begin to wonder if his efforts matter. He'll smile a little less, he'll try a little less, and one day when he finally walks away, it won't be out of rage. It'll be out of emptiness. And then she'll see it. Not just his absence, but everything his presence once meant. She'll remember the stability he gave, the strength he offered, the peace that filled the home simply because he was in it. She'll finally understand what it means to miss a man, not because he was perfect, but because he gave all he had. Quietly, faithfully, and without ever asking for more than to be seen. Entitlement is a silent thief. It doesn't arrive with malice or hatred. It creeps in slowly, quietly, often disguised as expectation. At first it seems harmless, just a belief that the love being given will always be there, that the person doing the giving will never stop. But over time, entitlement begins to corrode the soul of a relationship. What was once received with joy and appreciation starts to feel like a right. A man who once brought peace, stability, and devotion is no longer seen as a blessing. He's seen as the bare minimum. The more she received, the less she recognized the cost of what he gave. And instead of saying thank you, she started asking, "What else? She forgot that love is not owed, respect is not guaranteed, loyalty is not automatic. These are choices, a man's daily decision to love, honor, and commit. When a man offers these things freely, it is not because he must, but because he chooses to, and that choice should never be taken lightly. But entitlement blinds the heart. It convinces someone that good behavior is simply standard, that emotional availability is expected, and that the effort of another human being should go unnoticed because that's just what they're supposed to do. Over time, gratitude vanishes. Kindness is ignored. Sacrifices become invisible. And worst of all, the person giving everything starts to feel like nothing. She didn't see how he bent to make her feel safe, how he swallowed his pride to keep the peace, how he held back his own frustrations to hear hers, how he made space for her dreams even when his were on hold. At one point, she may have cherished it. At one point, she may have thanked him, but as time passed, her appreciation turned to assumption, and that assumption turned into entitlement. She began to compare, to criticize, to complain, not because he gave her less, but because she had forgotten how much he had already given. And while she rolled her eyes at his routine kindness, while she dismissed his loyalty as boring, while she told herself she deserved more than the man who kept showing up, he was slowly withdrawing. Not because he stopped loving her, but because he realized she stopped valuing the love he gave. When a man feels like he's only as good as his last act of service, he begins to lose his sense of place. And when a man gives everything to someone who never pauses to acknowledge it, eventually he gives up. Not out of spite, but out of soul-deep exhaustion. When he left, it wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, it was quiet, just like his sacrifices had always been. But now she sees them. Every door he opened, every bill he paid, every time he asked how she was doing when no one ever asked him. She misses the little things because she finally realizes they were the big things. And now all that entitlement is gone. In its place, a hollow space where gratitude should have lived. Regret doesn't speak when everything's fine. It waits. It waits in the shadows while life moves forward, while love is taken for granted, while words go unsaid and efforts go unnoticed. And then when it's too late, when the house is quiet, when the laughter is gone, when the phone no longer rings, that's when regret finds its voice. And it's loud. It's relentless. It echoes in the silence that follows a man who finally gave up trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be enough. She didn't hear the warning signs when he was still there. She missed the tiredness in his eyes, the long pauses in his answers, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. She didn't see how many times he swallowed his hurt, just to keep the peace. She didn't hear the heartbreak behind the words, "I'm okay." But now she hears everything. Now, in the quiet, every word he ever said comes back like thunder. She remembers the way he used to ask, "Do you need anything?" and how she'd nod without a second thought. She remembers how he'd offer help before she even asked, how he'd show up for her, listen to her, carry her burdens without making her feel the weight of his own. Back then, it felt normal. Back then, it felt automatic. But now she realizes it was rare, precious, and now it's gone. Regret has a way of turning memories into mirrors, forcing you to see yourself as you were, not as you wanted to believe you were. And in those memories, she sees a woman who didn't say thank you enough. A woman who criticized more than she praised. A woman who looked at a good man and wanted more. More excitement, more attention, more perfection, without realizing she already had something most people pray for. A man who stayed, a man who tried, a man who gave. And now she can't call him. She can't ask him to come back, because he's not waiting anymore. When he was there, she spoke over him. Now she wishes she could hear him speak just one more time. When he held her, she took it for granted. Now she lies awake at night wondering who he's holding. The very presence she dismissed has become the absence that haunts her. And the worst part is, he didn't leave with rage. He left with sadness. A quiet, kind of pain that only someone who's been overlooked for too long can feel. He didn't slam the door. He simply stopped knocking. Now every silence is filled with the sound of her own regret. Every room feels colder. Every day feels longer. And all the things she thought were small, the text messages, the coffee he made, the way he kissed her forehead before leaving, now feel enormous. Because regret grows in the soil of silence. And when a good man goes quiet, the loudest thing left behind is the echo of everything that was never said, never appreciated, never understood, until it was too late. It's a truth as old as time, and yet one that seems to be learned only through pain. You never truly know what you had until it becomes a memory. When you're living in the moment, surrounded by consistency, by routine, by the quiet presence of someone who always shows up, it's easy to overlook the miracle of it. A good man doesn't always make waves. He doesn't draw attention to himself. He doesn't ask for recognition. He simply gives, simply stays, simply builds a life around you. And because he's always there, you begin to believe he always will be. She didn't mean to be careless with his heart. She didn't plan to let love slip through her fingers. But comfort breeds complacency, and familiarity can dull even the brightest flame when it's not fed. His love was reliable, his touch familiar, his presence expected. Day after day, he did the things that made her life easier, more stable, more whole. And she noticed, but not in the way that matters. She noticed enough to enjoy the benefits, but not enough to nurture the man behind them. Over time, he faded into the background of her world, a part of the scenery instead of the center of her focus. Now, he's gone. And every place he used to be is filled with the ache of memory. The coffee mug that used to wait for him on the counter now sits cold and untouched. The jacket he used to hang by the door no longer swings from its hook. The bed feels larger, but not in the way she ever wanted. And her phone, so full of messages once, now lies silent in the moments she wishes he'd call. It's in the little things that the loss becomes unbearable. The song he used to hum in the kitchen, the way he reached for her hand without thinking, the way he always checked the locks at night so she'd feel safe. These weren't grand gestures. They weren't social media moments or anniversary surprises. They were simple, repeated acts of love, so constant they became invisible, until they disappeared. And now they haunt her like ghosts. She replays his kindness in her mind, realizing how little she gave in return, how often she pointed out his flaws, but never praised his efforts. How many times he asked, "Are you okay?" while she never thought to ask him the same. What she once saw as ordinary, she now sees as extraordinary. And it's too late. Because memory has a way of sharpening what was once blurred. It strips away the noise and shows you the truth. And the truth is this: she had a man who gave her the kind of love people search a lifetime for. A man who was far from perfect, but was perfect for her. And now, that love exists only in photographs, in voice messages she can't delete, in the silence of a home that used to be filled with his presence. And in that silence, she finally understands. She didn't just lose a man, she lost the life he built around her. A life she didn't recognize was beautiful, until it became a memory. Good man will endure far more than he should. He'll try longer than most. He'll stay when others would have left. He'll carry burdens, swallow pain, and push past disrespect because that's what strong men do. They fight for the people they love. He will forgive words that cut deep, accept apologies never spoken, and make peace with being overlooked, just to keep the relationship whole. But even the strongest man has a breaking point. And when that point is reached, when the quiet accumulation of hurt finally outweighs the hope, something deep within him shifts. A switch is flipped, and when that happens, when a good man is truly broken, he doesn't always come back. She didn't think it would ever happen. He was always there. He always showed up. He always came back, no matter how many times she pushed him away with cold words or silent nights. He forgave the attitude, the distance, the criticism. He held on through seasons of emotional drought, through moments of being treated like an option instead of a priority. And because he never raised his voice, because he didn't fight back or threaten to leave, she believed he never would. But that's the mistake so many make. They confuse silence for weakness. They think patience is infinite, but it's not. Even the most patient heart eventually runs out of room for pain. He tried to tell her, maybe not with words, but with tired eyes. With the way his laugh became less frequent. With the way he started to hesitate before reaching for her hand. These were the signs of a man who was running low, on joy, on peace, on purpose within the relationship. But she didn't see it. Or worse, she saw it and assumed he'd get over it like he always did. She didn't realize that every time he felt unheard, a part of him detached. That every time his efforts were met with coldness or indifference, something inside him dimmed. And then one day he was done. No fight, no final plea, no door slammed on the way out, just gone. Because when a man finally breaks, he doesn't always do it in anger. He does it in silence, in peace, in the stillness that comes when he accepts that staying would cost more of him than he can afford to give. And when he leaves from that place, not out of rage but out of resolve, he doesn't look back. Now she misses him. She misses the way he used to look at her like she mattered. She misses the sound of his keys in the door, the way he used to say her name, the quiet strength he brought into the room without ever needing to announce it. But he's not coming back. Not because he hates her, not because he's bitter, but because somewhere along the line, love stopped being a place of rest for him. And when a man learns that love only brings him pain, he walks away. Not to punish her, but to finally protect himself. There's a moment after the damage is done and the silence settles, when a person wakes up to the truth of what they've lost. For her, it didn't happen in a dramatic instant. It came slowly, like a fog lifting after a storm. She began to see clearly. She saw his absence in places she never thought would feel empty. She noticed the lack of laughter, the missing comfort, the steady hand that used to ground her. She realized she had taken a good man for granted. But now she wanted him back. And that's when she learned something else. Redemption is possible, but it comes with a cost. It's not enough to miss someone. Missing someone is an emotion. Redemption requires action. It means confronting not just the loss, but the reason behind it. She could cry for him every night, but unless those tears turned into change, they would never rebuild what she broke. Because when a man has been wounded deeply, when his love has been stretched thin, when his value has been overlooked, when his loyalty has been met with neglect, coming back to that same space requires more than an apology. It requires proof. And proof takes time, effort, and humility. She had to come face to face with the version of herself that pushed him away. The version that complained more than she encouraged. The version that judged him harder than she supported him. She had to ask herself hard questions. Why didn't she speak love into him when he was low? Why did she expect so much and give so little back? Why did she treat his quiet strength as ordinary, when it was extraordinary all along? These are the questions that redemption demands, and answering them truthfully hurts. And even if she finds those answers, even if she changes, there's still no guarantee he'll return. That's the cost. Redemption isn't a bargain, it's a sacrifice. It means doing the work without a promise of restoration. It means rebuilding who you are, not to win someone back, but to become someone who deserved them in the first place. Because when a good man walks away, he's not always waiting. Sometimes he's healing. Sometimes he's learning to love himself in the way he was never loved. Sometimes he's finding peace in the very silence that now torments her. She now stands on the other side of her choices, looking back at what could have been. She finally knows how to love him right, but he's no longer there to receive it. And that's the sting of redemption. It teaches you the right way too late, but still, it matters. Because even if the relationship can't be saved, she can. Even if he never comes back, she can become the kind of woman who would never make the same mistake again. That's the beauty of redemption. It's not about erasing the past, it's about transforming the future. but only if she's willing to pay the price of growth, of accountability, of real, lasting change. Because love can be found again, but never without the lessons from what was lost. And so what began as a story of a woman who took a good man for granted ends not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with revelation. This is not just her story. It's a mirror for many, a warning, a wake-up call. We live in a time where love is romanticized in public but neglected in private, where people chase sparks and overlook the steady flame, where commitment is expected but rarely reciprocated. This message is not just about a man walking away. It's about the weight of unspoken sacrifice, the danger of entitlement, the cost of emotional neglect, and the haunting echo of regret. The truth is, good men are not loud. They don't beg to be seen. They don't scream their worth. They show up. They give. They stay. But even the strongest hearts grow tired when they're taken for granted. And when they leave, what you lose is not just a person. It's peace, protection, loyalty, and love that you may never find again in the same form. But this speech is not meant to shame, it's meant to shake us awake. Because there is still time for someone listening right now to recognize what they have before it becomes a memory. There is still time to speak gratitude, to give respect, to heal what's wounded before it's too far gone. And yes, there is even time for redemption if it's real, if it's humble, if it cost you something. So let this moment be a turning point. For the woman who didn't know how to love until it was too late. For the man who gave everything and walked away silently. For every soul that's ever been overlooked or guilty of overlooking someone else. Let this not end in silence. Let it end in change. Final words. Don't wait until he's gone to value what he gave. Don't wait until she's missing you to realize what you lost. Speak now. Heal now. Love now. Because when a good heart stops knocking, it may never knock again.